It's a great idea to be part of Brevity and share your thoughts. I'm a second-generation entrepreneur based out of Lucknow. I manufacture automotive components which are entirely exported, and I took over the business from my father, who started it as a fledgling company. And the journey has been extremely, extremely educating and happy. So I happily transited into the business. I happily took the challenges. I happily moved on. I happily grew. And today we are amongst one of the world's largest manufacturers in the segment we are, and I'm happy about it. So what I'm going to talk about is our pursuit of happiness. I think everyone, all of us, whatever we do, however we try to achieve whatever we do in our careers, in our businesses, at the end of the day, it is for that one word, happiness. Unfortunately, we tend to look beyond that space where happiness exists, and that is within. So how many of us get up in the morning with a smile on our faces, with a spring in your step, ready to take the challenges of this big bad world? For those who do, well, whatever you're doing is absolutely right. And for those who don't, I think you need to press that restart button and reconfigure your life. At the end of the day, if you look at the anecdotes, the small situations that you go through in life, you need to look at it from a perspective which can be analyzed in terms of the happiness that you would derive from that situation. So everything is not about IQ. There's also an EQ, which is part of what you do. So as part of the emotional quotient, you must need to understand and train yourself to react to situations. Let me give you an example. You're going for a very important meeting. It's a skyscraper with 80, 100 floors, and you're running and getting late, and you press the lift button of the lift. You have to wait for a few minutes for the doors to open, and there's a surge of people that gets into that lift. You have to go to the 50th floor, and you patiently wait and keep looking at your watch, and suddenly, when the floor arrives and the doors open, you're about to get off, and a little child in her mother's arms clings to your sleeve, gives you a very disarming, innocent smile, and you just watch the doors close and hang on to that little child's smile. The lift goes up, another 30 floors, and by the time you come down, it's another 10 minutes, and you walk into that meeting very late. Another situation. You're driving to another meeting in your car. You run into a traffic situation, there's some rally and there's a jam, and you can go neither forward or backwards, and you're stuck. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, what do? You just switch on the air conditioning, some good music, and wait for that rally to pass. But you do arrive 10 minutes late for that meeting, just like the gentleman who went on the elevator. Now, how do you express the delay when you walk into those meetings? One way is to look sheepish, look a little embarrassed, and get on with the rest of the day's work. The other situation is to say it like it is. There is always a lighter side to being human. And if you were to explain the situation in just 2 minutes as to why you got late, it would completely lighten up the entire atmosphere and not be embarrassing as you thought perhaps it would be. So life does give you opportunities to reboot yourself, as in the case of the emotional part of what you do. I would like to share 3 mantras. As you go along in this pursuit of happiness, there are 3 mantras that I have closely held to myself, and as a result of my experiences. 1, everything happens for a reason. Everything in our lives happens for a reason. And you have to look for the good in that reason. It is there, but it's for you to find that good in that reason. The second, thing that you must be cognizant of is that life always gives you two chances, and you have to choose the right one. And when I say right, I mean you could always make a wrong decision, but that's what experience is all about. And third, and most importantly, no matter what happens in your life, success, failure, ups and downs, it should not change you as a human being. So essentially, if you can train yourself to adapt to these situations, life would definitely be a much easier journey. Another aspect that I have learned in life is that there are three very important things one must make a part of one's day-to-day living. And that is two things that you must forget and one thing that you must remember. The two things, the first of the two things is, whatever good you do in this life, do not remember it, forget it. And as an example, I can share, perhaps, you did something good for your friend many months ago, and 6 months later, you go back to that friend to ask him for a similar favor, and he somehow gets himself out of it and he says, I'm sorry, I can't do much. Now, does that make you feel bad? Of course it does. But if you didn't carry that good so far, it would probably not be a situation you'd have to face. Another situation, you have a friend who has a party, you called him at yours, he didn't call you at his. So no big deal. Forget it. Move on. Just like a postman who delivers letters to your house and he goes on to the next house, he doesn't care what he delivered to which letterbox. Similarly, however, there are certain things that you do which give you happiness for life. For example, if you fed a poor, hungry man, for him, that was a one-time happiness that you provided him, but for you, for the rest of your life, you'll probably remember that smile on that face. The second thing, which is more difficult than the first thing, that you must forget, is the bad that people do to you. There is something called karma. And whatever happens to you, I believe, is almost like the theory of karma. How else would you explain innocent children dying in earthquakes, innocent pilgrims dying in bus accidents and calamities? So really, there's not a real answer to that. Take, for example, many years ago, a telegram was perhaps the fastest way of communication. And if a postman delivered a telegram to you, good news or bad news, he was not responsible. Your karma got you the good news or the bad news. And now, the third thing that you must remember, and that is death. Somebody asked Swami Vivekananda once, Swami, what is the most beautiful thing about life? And he said, death. And everybody was surprised. How can that be beautiful? He says, change is a constant. Everything changes. You are a child. You become a teenager. The child in you dies. You become old, and the teenager dies. And you become aged, and you finally die. So this is part of what nature is. For example, there is a gentleman who is detected with a terminal illness. He is told that he's going to live for those 7 or 8 days. What do you think happens to such a person? He kind of detaches himself from worldly things. He has no hatred. He has only forgiveness. He only likes to make good relations. And he tries to move on in those 7 days, trying to be the best person he could. Now that is something which is very definitive and only happens when you know death is certain. We know it is certain, but we tend not to accept that. I'll give you another example. You buy a nice bunch of beautiful, fragrant flowers. You bring them to your home, you put them in a vase, and diligently water them and enjoy the beauty and fragrance of those flowers for 7 days. And after 7 days, when they wilt and die, you just remove them from the vase, put them into a garbage bin, and feel nothing wrong about it. There's no remorse. You don't feel attached to those flowers, although you enjoyed them 7 days of that week. Similarly, our relations with our family, friends, are similar to your relationship with those flowers. You have to move on. You have to accept that there is something which is very certain in our lives, which is death. So death can be taken in a very beautiful meaning. So I'd like to leave you with a thought. How many times do we get to spend time with ourselves? Today, in this world of gadgets and technology and the fast-paced world, we rarely get time for ourselves. Sometimes I'm asked the question, how boring can that be? How can you just be by yourself? Well, if you can't tolerate your own company, imagine what your friends and family would think. Thank you very much.